Welcome to the 24th floor. I'm Richard Denson.
And I'm Ruben Diaz. Memphis football is deep now in preseason camp. I'm excited about football season. I love it. The season is fast approaching. Charles Huff is starting to show everybody what the program's going to kind of look like at this point.
Yeah, and it goes, Ruben, beyond X's and O's. Huff has been a consistent guy about the culture he wants to build. Now we're starting to see it take shape on the practice field.
So, in fact, after a recent Tigers practice, Huff spoke about what he's been seeing from his team, what he expects moving forward. Take a listen.
Memphis is a tough city with grit. This program is a tough program with grit. And that's not just, board drill running into each other. That's everything. When we meet, there's a way we meet. You got to sit in the right seat. You got to have something to write with. You got to have notes at the end that you got to show your coach. You got to come back the next day with 3 or 4 questions. Like, there is a lot of discipline, accountability that goes into it.
Ruben, you know what I took away from that segment when I was listening to it? He never talked about wins. He just talked about habits.
Yeah, so here's why. So a lot of coaches, myself included, we don't talk about wins and losses. We talk about performance. Performance is the word we use a lot. Mm-hmm. So what I always tell people is if you learn how to perform, your odds of winning go up. If you don't perform well, your odds of losing go up. Mm-hmm. That's wins and losses are relative to how you perform. And your performance is based on your preparation, especially in football. Football is very much on that, prepare to perform for the game, right? So I think that's kind of what you're seeing, is you're seeing Coach Huff talk a lot about the preparation that's going to lead to a performance that hopefully leads to wins.
I like what in the quote, he specifically said Memphis is a place with grit. And I think him saying that their team is essentially like that, he's already from day one making his team very relatable. And I don't know if it's being done on purpose, but I just like how discipline isn't just on the field. It's just everything that they do.
So, and I don't know this, know it, but it gives the impression that maybe he felt like he needed to come in and tighten the ship up from what it had been.
Yeah, especially looking at that bowl season.
Yes. So you and I talked about this off camera, where I said I always got the impression that the previous staff was a lot more player friendly, a little bit more on the loose side, let things slide kind of a thing. And maybe this staff is trying to realign the team and the players with what it means to be a disciplined, cultured team and program. Because once you build that, then the next guys who come in understand what they have to come into. If you don't ever create that and establish it from the beginning, then you're always trying to find a way to establish it. So that's kind of the vibe he gives me, is that it's not so much that he's trying to, be super disciplined all the time. He's just trying to realign what discipline and culture means for Memphis football.
Now, we talk a lot about culture on this show. Do you think that culture can help you win games?
Yes.
Or at the end of the day, do you think it's just about the talent?
1,000% helps you win games.
Okay.
And here's why. Culture helps win because when things get tough, if you have the right culture where you're a family, you're a unit, you work together, you lean on each other, then when things get tough in the game, you don't fall apart. You come together. When you don't have good culture, when you got me guys everywhere and people who only care about themselves and they're not bought into the overall picture, then when things get tough, that's when the finger pointing starts. That's when the blaming, that's when the yelling on the sidelines. And then instead of being able to rally together and find a way to win, you end up falling apart. You do see some teams that as soon as one thing goes bad,
everybody gets mad.
Everything
it's
falls
like a
apart.
domino effect.
Yes, that's from a bad culture. A good culture, you can have the other team can go on a run or score a touchdown or get a pick six, and everybody rallies together and puts together a good drive.
They always say, we'll be all right.
Yes.
Well, if culture is the foundation, Huff says leadership is what keeps it together. But instead of naming traditional team captains, Ruben, he had a different approach. Take a listen.
We have an influence group, which this summer, right at the end of summer, before we got into camp, we had the team select 2 leaders from each group. I explained to them what influence means. It's not leadership, it's not a captain. Influence means these are guys who are able to influence people around them in a positive manner, whether that's one person or an entire unit. That does not mean that the influencer is perfect.
What do you think about that? I like that. Not having a legit team captain with the C on their jersey, but having an influence group.
I think it's a nod to try to connect with a time frame and a culture that uses where the word influencer has more meaning than captain.
Yeah.
In this day and age, an influencer is a more meaningful person than a captain. And so when you can, I mean, what he's talking about is a group of team captains.
Yeah.
If you're really being honest, you're just talking about a group of people that you're saying, hey, these are the people that can, help speak for you, that you can speak to, that can, hold people accountable. That's what captains do. But instead of calling them captains, you're going to call them influencers because that helps that younger generation correlate the importance of the position. And so I think it's smart. It's good marketing. It's a smart idea. And I think that anytime you can do something a little different, why not? Why not? Who says you have to do it the way it's always been done?
And isn't it better that it's like picked by the players and not the coaches? Because sometimes I think when you're handpicked by the establishment, there's always kind of a bit of a resentment.
I think most of the time team captains are picked by the players.
Yeah.
So most
they
of the
are?
time, most of the time team captains get together and they select. The players get together and they select the team captains. This is the guy we want to lead. Now the coaches may have their own opinions on who they think the leader should be, but a lot of times the players are going to have.
So you as a coach, you let the players pick?
We don't. Yes, I mean if we worried about team captains, in summer you don't really have to have team captains, right? You're just running and gunning. But if we were doing team captains, I would let them pick it because
our coach picked them.
Now that doesn't mean that I don't know that I don't have a personal idea of who the leader of each team probably is. But sometimes that leadership role has to grow. That person has to grow into that role to be good at it. Just because I think that person has a chance to be a good leader, they still have to grow and develop. And so sometimes that might take time.
You think that's better than naming a permanent captain by having an influence group, especially because it can change? I think we alluded to it last week on the show about it can always shift. Is it better that way in this age?
Well, and I think yes, and I think part of the reason it becomes effective is because you can include people from different areas of the team. Don't forget, football is very segregated in practice. You're going to have your defense over here, and the defense will be broken up into different position groups. And all your position group work is separated with position coaches, and you only come together for the team unit, for the team segments, right?
Like little factions.
Yes, so there's all little factions all around the place, and you only come together for the team periods. Outside of that, you're always working and talking and coordinating with your own little group.
Yeah.
So having an influencer group that could have people from multiple parts of the team, I think is a very good idea because then you can hear those voices, those concerns, those questions can come from all the other places, not just maybe the quarterback who's only really in the quarterback room, who really only works with the quarterbacks, with the other quarterbacks and with the first team offense.
So you essentially have position reps.
For the most part.
Almost like politics, reps.
Yes.
Rep senators and everything.
State reps at the position level.
Yeah, with the linemen and the quarterbacks, the running backs. Now, one thing Charles Huff has stressed since arriving in Memphis is expectations. He talked about it when he was right here with us.
Yes.
Despite it, we know how Memphis was last year with the team, and guys quit on the bowl, which you saw. You said that was going to happen.
I told you it was going to happen.
So those expectations, as we know this, as I always say, this city is starving for success. The expectations to win doesn't change no matter who's on the roster. He says every player has to earn their role. Take a listen.
With only 5 for 5, you got to find a role for those guys fast, whether that is, special teams, whether that's, hey, you're in the rotation, whether that is, hey, you're a 3 with working ability. But you don't really have time to redshirt anyone. So it forces our coaches to kind of throw them in the fire. That was a little bit of today. Some of those young guys kind of got through in the fire. Again, I think it's a little bit like you got to get your feet in the pool to know the temperature, right? It's one thing to sit on the board. It's one thing to go through a walkthrough. But it's another thing to be out there for 5, 6, 7, 8 plays in a row. And then are you able to consistently execute?
This is literally college football in the year 2026, 1-year seasons. I was going to ask you, do you think that now it is even more paramount to throw guys in the fire or still try to let them develop?
No, so what he's talking about is the new 5 for 5 rule that just
got passed,
passed, right?
You talked about 5 for 5 with Coach Hayden.
And so what he's saying at this point is that when you have now that you have 5 for 5, you don't have a redshirt year.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have a medical redshirt year. There's no time to sit a guy.
Yeah.
So when you bring a guy in, you got to try to find a role for him to at least start to get some time, start to get some reps, start to get some feel. Because if you're planning on keeping him, he's got to see something. If those guys don't see
still
nothing,
be bought in.
Yes, then
they're in that portal.
100%. So that's what he's alluding to is the fact that in this day and age, which I don't think is a bad thing. I don't think it's. I've never been opposed to redshirt years. I've always thought that when you bring a kid in almost any sport, from high school to college, 90% of them are not physically ready. There's that few, that 10% that are, but 90% of them aren't physically ready as freshmen. Their workouts are nowhere near as intense as they are in college. Usually their eating habits and their health are not great compared to what's going to have to be in college. And the season is so much longer and harder in college, in football and basketball, than it is in high school. It's not even funny. So most of the time, those guys aren't ready. They usually hit a wall, freshman wall, halfway through a season. So I've always been okay with redshirting a guy. Hey, you bring him in, you redshirt him, let him learn, let him get in the weight room, let him get their health right, let him get acclimated, and then you stick him out on the field. But without redshirt opportunities anymore, you don't have that opportunity. Now you just got to find a way, how do I get a guy involved? And it changes who you bring in, because now you don't bring in guys that you could bring in a guy and say, okay, I'm just going to redshirt that guy for a year. Let's see how he develops and see if he buys in. If he does, then we'll give him a shot next year. Can't do that now. So now you're only going to bring in guys that you say, that guy could at least play special teams for us.
I'm glad you hit it, because that's exactly where I was going to get to. Special teams is still the way to get on the field. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%.
If you're not established,
yes.
like if you're not like a guy, if you're not made, then if you're trying to see the field, special teams is the way, right?
1,000%. If you want to see the field in this 5-for-5 era as a freshman, if you are a backup running back, a backup linebacker, a backup safety, any of those types of things, become a special teams aficionado. Learn how to do great punt coverage, be a great gunner, learn how to block in kickoffs, all those things that are really important that people take for granted because they want to be a star here or there, can get you on the field. And then once you're on the field, it's easier to transition a guy who's playing few reps in special teams to being, okay, now you're second or third team running back when so-and-so gets down, as opposed to the guy who's been sitting on the bench who's never seen the field, and now I'm trying to pull that guy straight cold. It just doesn't work that way.
And what people should always look in, I know Ruben probably going to say, one of the best examples of going from special teams to a star, Tyreek Hill.
100%.
Oklahoma State guy.
Yeah.
He played special teams for OSU. I was there when he ran the kickback against OU to win Bedlam. Then ended up becoming a star for the Chiefs at wideout.
It's almost like they didn't know, because, it's almost like Oklahoma, the staff didn't realize what they had in him until he started killing it on special teams.
Yeah.
And then everybody was like, why is this dude not getting the ball 30 times a game? You got to find a way to get this dude the ball. And so as soon as he lit the fire at special teams, he became a star.
Unfortunately, he had some off-the-field issues, but he still found his way to stardom. I don't think he'll ever play it down again, but we're not talking about Tyreek Hill. Something that happens a lot on special teams that frustrates all of us as fans is penalties.
Yes.
Penalties. And let's see what Charles Huff talked about penalties when we asked him.
Our goal is 0 penalties. When you make 1 penalty, you've made too many. Again, is it okay to murder 1 person and not 20? It's not. Discipline is discipline. I know that sound, and I don't want to sound, but it's literally that serious to me. There's a rule, follow the rule. And when you don't, there's a consequence. Maybe that's playing time. Maybe that's, hey, you're watching more film. Maybe that's, hey, you're after practice for an hour working on that step that cost you, that made you hold. If you don't go to work, they will fire you. And sometimes, as I tell them, you can go to work for 40 years and they'll lay you off. So you can't hold. You can't not play the ball the right way in the deep part of the field. You can't block a guy in the back. 0 penalties is our goal. Now, what's the reality of that? The same thing. We all make mistakes. But if I say, hey, guys, if we have under 6 penalties, we'll be okay. Well, that means those 6 penalties didn't matter.
Ruben, when I listened to this, I remember telling you, ooh, I got one, and that was the quote. So that was probably my favorite thing he said at the whole press conference.
We talked about this before, but I always tell people you only get so many my bads.
I was just finna say, because I knew you was going to say that when I picked this soundbite.
100%. And what he's saying is exactly that. You only get so many my bads. You got 11 dudes on offense, 11 dudes on defense. If each one of those guys just has 1 my bad, man.
Too many.
That's too many. So while you're never going to have a perfect game very rarely you're going to have no penalties at all.
That's what I was about to say. It's not realistic.
It's not realistic. But saying to themselves that even 1 penalty is 1 too many my bads, I think is a good standard to set.
Not accepting good enough. What a guy this guy, Coach Huff is.
I like Coach Huff a lot. I think he's going to be really good.
I mean, he just getting me excited about the season. So, I mean, what's the one thing you'll be watching for in this Memphis opener that tells you this culture is taking hold?
The energy from the sideline during the game. Mm-hmm. The energy from the sideline tells you, are those guys bought in? Are they all in? Or are they playing the part? You know, because the guys on the field are always hyped. They're on the field. But the guys on the sideline, when they take that shot, you know, of Coach Huff, are there guys, are the coaches and the staff?
You don't want to see no dunking the ball like Ole Miss did or the fire extinguisher.
He's not going to do that. But I'm just talking about being hyped, being excited and being, because that's when you know, okay, they feel like they've got something special here and they can move forward. I don't need to see them drop 40 points in the first game. You know, that's not what's going to tell me whether or not they're going to be good. It's whether or not they're disciplined on the field and excited on the sideline.
Well, I'm excited. Opening up against UNLV on the road, week 0. If Charles Huffy gets the culture he's preaching, Memphis football could be in for an exciting season.
Yeah, they'll make a bowl game if they do even half of what he's wanting them to do. All right, with the Tigers aren't the only team with something to prove, though, this fall.
Yes, next we dive into the high school football season. We'll share some of our biggest takeaways from traveling across the Mid-South for our back-to-school football special and highlight the teams and players you need to know.
That's all coming up next on the 24th floor.
Welcome back to the 24th floor. With the high school football season right around the corner, we spent the past week visiting practices across the Mid-South. It's hot.
It is.
Yes,
yeah.
We saw which teams are starting to take shape.
Yeah, one thing became pretty clear in the area, and that there's no shortage of storylines this year. There's going to be a lot to talk about. We're talking about new quarterbacks all over the area, so you got to talk about those guys. Talking about teams trying to take the next step. Maybe they didn't have the best season last year and think they can rebound from that. And there's plenty to keep an eye on before we actually kick off the ball.
Yeah, so let's take you inside a few of the practices we visited and show you what stood out. All right, Ruben, one of the biggest storylines we kept running into was at quarterback.
Yes.
Several of the Mid-South's top programs are handling the offense to a new face this fall, including Briarcrest, where junior Caden Dixon, he takes over after the departure of school record setter Hudson Tucker. Now, Dixon, he knows the expectations, but he says the focus inside the locker room hasn't changed.
I would say just a win. First of all, be a leader as a quarterback for my teammates, be a leader in the classroom. And for the team, I would say the main goal is to win the state championship. And so I would just say stay focused. The standard is the standard for the team.
I think the biggest thing I took away from that was the standard is the standard. I like that. And that's what I asked them a lot because, Briarcrest is one of our more distinguished private schools. They win in everything.
Yeah.
They won in basketball. They went far in football. They're a really good baseball team. So for him, losing a guy like Hudson Tucker, it's next man up. You would sometimes think when you're changing things over, there's a little bit more grace, but they know that when they take the field, they're probably going to get a team's best shot.
Yeah, so we always say it takes what it takes, right? Like, you want to win, it takes what it takes. So let's not sugarcoat or gloss over the fact that Caden Dixon is extremely talented.
Yes.
Extremely
Just
talented.
a junior.
Yes, coming over from Nashville to play at Briarcrest. Obviously, I believe he was at Briarcrest when he was younger.
He was.
Right, and so then went to Nashville. Then when the opening came, when Hudson Tucker, he decided to come back and finish out at Briarcrest. I'm sure they welcomed him with open arms. The guy's extremely talented. He's got great size for a quarterback. He's got a massive arm. He can throw that thing. And so there is no drop-off. There shouldn't be any drop-off. No drop-off expected at all. And so the idea that the standard is true, but it's also easier to hold that when you bring in a 3, 4, 5-star guy who's going to be able to hold your standard. They're not starting fresh with some guy who don't know how to throw the ball.
And one thing I like about Caden is you might get this perception of him based on kind of like how he markets himself on social media, but when you talk to him in person, he's very humble, and he doesn't try to be flashy at all. He sounds way older than what he is. When I found out he was a junior, I thought he was a senior.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, this kid still got another year regardless of what happens. So I kind of like that about him.
Well, so unfortunately, when you're trying to establish yourself and work on your recruiting and all that stuff, social media has to become this me spotlight.
Yeah.
It has to. That's just the way it works.
In everything.
In everything. And so when guys like that are trying to, keep their name hot, because really it's just name and face recognition. When you're trying to keep your name hot, you have to be that way on social media, even though if that's not who you really are in person. And so I never let social media gauge how I think a person is till I meet them in person. And so
Me too.
I do
Same
think
way.
that his background is going to fit really well with Briarcrest, and his ability to play football is going to actually give them another element that they really didn't have that much last year, because Hudson Tucker is more of a pocket passer.
Yeah.
He would get out when he had to, but that wasn't his,
That wasn't his bread and
It wasn't
butter.
his bread and butter. And Caden Dixon can run, and he's
Yeah.
big, and you're going to have to, a corner's not taking that guy down.
Yeah.
A linebacker has to come get that dude. And so I think it does allow Briarcrest to open up the field in ways they couldn't in the last couple of years.
I look at that as almost like Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix. I know I make that comparison with me and Ruben with the Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix thing, but
He's
you're
the young
saying
and
it-
I'm the old, is what I'm saying.
But Michael Penix, but I mean, certainly high expectations over at Briarcrest. And speaking of high expectations, another program we visited isn't just replacing the quarterback, but it's looking to build on one of the best seasons in school history. Now, not every program is defined by who lines up under center. Some teams build their identity on the culture they create. I know we talk about that a lot on this show, and year after year, Middle College continues to do just that. When we stopped by practice, head coach Lenora Staples told us the lessons his players learn go far beyond the final score.
I mean, football teaches the game of life, right? Teaches about character, integrity, working hard, getting out here, getting after it, being determined to accomplish your goals.
Now, Ruben, I know you'll appreciate this. I think that's why coaches love the game, because everybody wants to win, but Coach Staples is talking about putting young men first.
So
I know you can appreciate that.
Yeah, I always tell people at the end of the day, only one team gets to win state.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're saying that we didn't win state and that was a failure, even though you had a great season, you had a 10-win season or a 9-win season, or let's say you had a 7-win season, but all your kids graduated and you had a handful of kids go play college somewhere, get an education for free, that's ultimately what athletics is all about. We always say that sports teaches life lessons, and so
Camaraderie.
and football is one of the leaders in that. So I've never thought that you should gauge success solely by winning state championships.
Yeah.
I've never thought that. Not at the high school level. Professional level is different, right?
Yeah.
You're a pro, you're trying to win the championship. But at the high school level, and even at the college level, I don't necessarily agree.
Me too. That's why I said if OSU wins the conference, I'm good. Win the Big 12, we all good, baby.
Well, then that means that you should go along with my idea of having a sub-national championship game.
Well,
That's a whole other conversation. So, yes, I really like what Coach has to say, because I agree with that 1,000%, that it's about building young men and women in different sports and helping them be better prepared for life.
And programs like Middle College, they keep competing year after year. That's why I think that they're scratching on the surface.
Yeah,
They've been
they're
scratching
this
on the
close,
surface
right?
so long to win the state title. I don't know. I feel like this might be the year that they do it.
So I haven't had a chance to dig into their roster yet.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, they are a small class, like Class 1A,
Yeah.
and I know you pay a lot of attention to 6A.
Well, it's just more the matter of the smaller the class, the less big guns you need, right? You're in 6A, you need big guns at several positions to match and win. If you get to the smaller classes, you don't need as many big guns. So it's really just going to be a matter of how many big dogs he's got that are playmakers that establish themselves early in the season that can lead them to that. Because you're right, they're competitive every year, but a lot of times, man, turning that corner is about having those one or two guys that can just go make a play.
And I know something, you alluded to it in our Memphis football segment about culture, and winning, basically for them, is the byproduct of establishing that
Yes.
right culture.
So, unfortunately, we don't see that as much as we'd like to, right? We see a lot of fluctuation, and sometimes why you see a lot of coaching change and some of those things. But I do love to see the fact that when you get a school that is built on culture, and then winning, like I say, is secondary. It comes. Winning is a byproduct of performance and culture.
Yeah, and another thing that we noticed during our visits, teams that expect to compete late into November, they aren't just relying on talent. They're relying on that culture, and that comes from leaning on experienced leaders. And that's certainly the case at Christian Brothers. The Purple Wave, Ruben likes to call them the Brothers.
Yeah.
They return to senior
Look at that
class.
beard.
No, look at Coach McDaniel with the beard. The Purple Wave, they return a senior class that's been through some ups and downs, but they believe that experience could make a difference this fall. Senior tight end and defensive lineman William Umstead says this group has grown closer than ever.
I definitely think we bond a lot more. We're a real tight team, and yeah.
A man of few words, but I got the point, Ruben.
A real tight team? Yeah. Christian Brothers is one of those places. Now, that is a very tight-knit community. You go to school there, it's a very tight-knit situation. They've got one of the best young quarterbacks.
In Nate Brick?
Yeah, in Nate Brick. And so,
what a name.
Yeah.
I love that name.
That dude can throw the ball. He's 6'3", 6'4", somewhere in that range. He was a freshman last year, got to finally get in and start towards the back end of the season. And once he did, they were able to actually move the ball because Christian Brothers, was primarily running that ball, running the rock for most of the season. And eventually they started to open it up whenever they were put Brick in there.
Yeah, and then, I think when it comes to Christian Brothers, they're a team that if you look at the landscape of private schools, they probably don't have the most talented team compared to a Briarcrest or the next team we'll talk about, Lausanne, but they'll really lean on that chemistry. And I think that's what makes Coach McDaniel and any squad that he coaches dangerous because he really leans on those guys to really, like you talked about, lean on that culture. And he knows that if they do their job, that they'll have a chance to compete every day.
I would say they maybe don't have as much fanfare when it comes to some of the guys that, but I would say they have a lot of talent there.
They do in Brick, but compared
not
to
just in Brick, they've got some receivers and some DBs. They've got some young guys in our 7-on-7 season during the offseason. We got to be around a lot of those kids, and man, they have some kids who can play.
Maybe it's the fanfare because they don't have offers like that.
Yes, so that's the difference. So kind of the fanfare of Briarcrest has Caden Dixon and what's the receiver's name again?
J.D. Donaldson.
Yeah, J.D. Donaldson.
And Octavius Flynn.
Yeah, so they've got these names that you kind of know, whereas Christian Brothers has dudes who can play. Yeah. They just maybe haven't built that name yet. You maybe just don't know their name yet. So I do think, and with them able to spread that field more this year from the beginning of the season, a lot of those guys who you didn't really get to know last year, you're going to know more about. It's hard to know if you got guys who can really go catch and make plays when all they're doing is blocking 70% of the time, right? So if they're able to actually go make plays now, I think it's going to make a difference.
Yep. Christian Brothers built on leadership, and a team that's also built on leadership is Lausanne, where the roster may be in young spots compared to Christian Brothers, but the expectations haven't changed. In fact, let's take a listen to what Coach Kevin LaCastro had to say.
And we're going to be battle tested right out of the chute with the early schedule that's really, really tough. And I think we'll find out a lot about this group in the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, Ruben, when I was looking at Lausanne's schedule, I was like, we got Southwind again to open it up. Then they do get Christian Brothers. I think they got another public school. I'm blanking.
They have Houston up there, or is that Briarcrest that has Houston?
They got somebody who's really good. I think somebody from 6A, but with Hefner, they got a shot, and they got Lawrence Britt, the wide receiver of the Mizzou commit.
Yes.
So, but one thing I noticed when talking to all these coaches, nobody's really talking about the postseason, which is what it's all about in November. They're talking about what really stood out, to them in the fall camp and establishing that foundation, that culture. And I know you say it takes the first 2 or 3 weeks when we'll know who's good, and Coach essentially said it right here. We'll figure it. They're going to be battle tested right out the gate. So
in football, probably more than any other sport, it's all about you're just winning that week. Mm-hmm. You're winning the practice, then you're winning the week. You're trying to go 1-0 every week. Yeah. And then after you've played the game and won the game or lost the game, you put it behind you and you don't worry about it anymore. And it's not till you start talking about maybe playoff seeding in the back end of the season where you maybe start thinking about, all right, projecting out, we got to win 2 of the last 3 or whatever. But if you're a football coach and you start looking at your schedule ahead, really any coach shouldn't be doing this, doesn't really do this, but most of football in particular is built this way, then you can there's too many details. You can miss a detail that you need to be on that because you're looking ahead. And so that's why football coaches never look ahead. They are just very much like in the moment, this is the week, we got to win this week, and that's all that matters.
As a coach, do you think the journey is more exciting than the destination?
Oh, absolutely. Because you're in the journey the memories are made in the journey, and then the destination at the end, you can celebrate together based on what everybody got to accomplish together. If your only goal is the destination, and don't get me wrong, everybody's going to start the season and say, hey, we want to compete for a state title, or we want to
host a playoff game.
Yeah, we want to host a playoff game. These are our goals. Goals are one thing. Everybody should have their goals. But if we're saying if the only thing you're ever thinking about is we're going to win state and that's all we care about, then you're going to miss so much greatness in between that road. Even if you make it to state, you miss so much because you're not focused on that week to week.
I like that everyone believes they're capable of making a run, and they should. Nobody should go in and be like, "Yeah, we're not going to be any good." But nobody.
Well, there's a couple teams that should probably say that.
I would hope that they don't say it when we got a microphone in their face, or else I'm going to make fun of you. But nobody's skipping the work to get there. And at the end of the day, it's about who works harder than the other one, because that's the one who holds the gold ball at the end of the season.
And there's so much movement now in high school football and in high school sports in general that it's getting a little bit like college, where you're not really going to know how good a team is until they line up. Because, we just talked about like today, like two major quarterbacks in the area that have got new homes, right? And so how do you really know how Lausanne or Briarcrest is going to be until you see them on the field against somebody? You don't really know. And that's the part about high school football that's changing, is the more movement that happens. And that's not the only Collierville got several dudes in this year. And they're
kind of the favorites in Classic
So
State.
how are they going to look? We don't know till we see them play. And once you see them on the field, then you're going to say, okay, man, they're the real deal, or man, maybe it didn't pan out the way you thought it would.
So, Ruben, it feels like we've only scratched the surface. I'm excited about this high school football season. I love fall camp. Even as a former athlete, I didn't play football, but I was in the band. But I always love how fall camp sets the foundation. And me being a band member, to just kind of see that was the foundation of how our marching band was going to be, and then see like over across the field that the football team is laying the groundwork. My senior year, I was blessed that our football team won it all, won the state title, and to just kind of look at that journey we talked about from fall camp all the way to finally winning it all. I love it. I love preseason.
Yeah, I know we're about out of time for this segment, so we do want to make sure you know that there is plenty of time to watch more about back-to-school football.
Yes, don't miss our ABC 24 back-to-school football special. We'll take you inside the biggest storylines, introduce you to teams to watch, and get you ready for kickoff across the Mid-South.
All right, it's going to be a great way to get ready for another high school football season. I'm excited for it as well.
And speaking of new seasons, the Memphis Tigers volleyball team is getting ready for year 2 under head coach Sherry Lindsay.
When we come back, you're going to sit down.
Yes, sit down with Coach Lindsay to talk about the growth of the program, the expectations for the season, and what's next for the Tigers. That conversation is next, right here on the 24th floor. Welcome back to the 24th floor. You know, we spend a lot of time talking football and basketball on this show, but there's another Memphis program getting ready for a new season. Memphis Volleyball is entering year 2 under head coach Sherry Lindsay. It's been a busy offseason, from adding to her coaching staff to launching the new Aces Club. There's plenty of momentum surrounding the program. So what's the vision for this team, and what does success look like this season, and why should Memphis sports fans be paying attention? Well, head coach Sherry Lindsay joins us now on the 24th floor. Coach, we thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, Coach, you're entering your 2nd season here at Memphis. I got to ask, what's the biggest thing you've learned about this city and the university over the past year?
Yeah, I mean, over the past year, I don't know that I would say that I learned it, because, I mean, if you know about Memphis, it goes hand in hand with the city. But the biggest thing that I kind of realized is that this city is this school, and this school is this city. And being out and about in the city is a big part of building your brand as a team, and also just overall exposure. The people here, they genuinely love everything about Memphis athletics and just the school in general. And so there's just a lot of pride that comes with being here. And so being able to foster that and, get my players out in the community, and it has made the community want to come out and watch them play. And so it's been really great.
You talk about pride, and another thing is culture. It's something we talk about a lot on this show. And when people hear that word, they usually think football or basketball. But what does culture look like inside a successful volleyball program?
Yeah, I mean, I would think the sport really doesn't matter. I think that at the end of the day, like, every coach strives to have strong team culture. And that's just, a team that moves. I always say player-led teams win championships. And so a team that moves kind of on its own without kind of having to be pulled along. And there's a role that coaches play as well in implementing those things. And so that's what we've spent my first year doing, is implementing a team culture that not just can withstand a season, but a team culture that can withstand, for years and years and years to come. We want to build long-lasting success, long-lasting culture. And so that's a big part of what we do. And, of course, with our recruiting and everything, finding athletes that fit into our system and our scheme, but also like that fit into this city and fit into this school. I feel like very special athletes want to come to Memphis and be a part of what all of our teams are building. And so that's a huge part of finding the right cultural fit when we're doing our recruiting as well. So yeah, I mean, culture is always going to be paramount in my gym.
And so recruiting is big, obviously, and I know this recruiting world is way different back from when you was playing volleyball now with NIL and transfer portals. Tell us a little bit of what that process is kind of like for you in this new world of college athletics, especially with budgets. Even now, like the big teams that you would think have money, they find themselves priced out.
Well, first of all, don't say back when. It wasn't that long ago.
My bad,
Wait a minute.
Coach.
It was kind of that long ago.
My
But no,
bad.
it is. It's just different, you know. And I think that as college coaches, it's our job to kind of adapt. And this past year of NIL, rev share, all that type of stuff has just been different, you know, for all of us to kind of adapt to. And so we're just, you know, slowly chugging along and you know, trying to make the best decisions for our teams and our rosters.
And so you won an AVCA Team Academic Award again, and this program has made academic success part of its identity. How important is it to build student athletes who succeed not only on the court, but off the court?
Yeah, I think that for me personally, when I was an athlete, I feel like more emphasis could have been put on the after, you know, on, you know, we get all this glory and stuff when you're playing and it's like, oh, you're a volleyball player, but it's like, okay, what are you when you step off this court after you walk across that stage and you're done playing after your 4 or 5 now years? What do you have to show for it? There's not a ton of, you know, professional volleyball leagues. There are some that are really growing rapidly, but or you can play overseas, but what does that look like for you? I want to make sure that we're fostering not just a good environment for you to have a great volleyball career, but I want you to have a degree to fall back on that means something to you that you can, you know, use to kind of catapult you into your career when you leave here. And I don't feel like I necessarily had that as much when I was an athlete. It was like, you're an athlete. And so when I was leaving school, I really had no idea what I was going to do. And it just became where I had a coach who, you know, needed an assistant coach. And then I moved to Ohio and I was an assistant coach and here we are. But I do think that that's a huge part of, you know, academic prowess is just as important to me as prowess on the volleyball court.
You bring up coaches. You recently added an assistant coach, Brooke Hudson from FAMU. Shout out HBCUs. I know you went to Prairie View A&M. Shout out. Now, the FAMU, they won a conference title last season, but what stood out to you about Miss Hudson and why was she the right fit for where this program is headed?
Yeah, so Brooke actually coached with me my last year at Prairie View. She was my student assistant. I also coached against her when she was playing at FAM, and I tell people all the time, there was nobody more frustrating to play against. There was a reason she was the libero of the year. She just, for one, she didn't let balls hit the ground, but she also just controlled the team in a way that I've never seen a defender control the team. And so she's that same exact way as a coach. And she played a huge role in our defense and serve receive when I was at Prairie View. And so I knew that she was going to be a perfect person to bring on to this staff, just the way that she kind of thinks through things. She sees the game a little bit different from other coaches. And so I'm super excited to have her here. I think she's going to really elevate our back row. So awesome stuff there.
And so they won the conference with a 9-7 record is what I was looking. And so it's not like it was something that they was just jaw dropping. They were just kind of getting it out of the mud, which I like programs like that. Sometimes you don't have to be all flashy to get it done. Now, last season, Coach obviously had its challenges. And I always tell people Rome wasn't built in a day. And so we should always give graces to year one coaches. But every program has a point where it starts turning the corner. What gives you confidence that this team is moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I think a big part of last year, like I said, aside from the cultural piece, we had to build. You know, we had very limited numbers when I first took this job, and the way volleyball recruiting kind of works is we're recruiting years and years out. You know, we have 3 2028 commits. You know, these are rising juniors, and so because we recruit so far out, it's a little bit tougher to find players, you know, super late. And so we managed to find some awesome athletes who were willing to buy in and willing to get stuff done and do work. And, you know, unfortunately, you can't really do too much about injuries and some of the things that occur. But I was just really proud of them. And so I feel like throughout that fall, because of course nobody wants to lose, but there's other ways to win, in my opinion. There's other ways to win culturally. There's ways to win, by team building and being a good teammate and those type of things. And so when we went into the spring, yes, we did go into the portal. We did find some athletes to help us kind of continue to build. And that was a really cool turning point for them. And when I'm talking turning point, I mean from a playing perspective. We seen them take a huge leap ahead as athletes, and that's what spring is for. And so I was super excited. We saw a lot of really cool things that happened in some of these spring tournaments. So I'm really excited to put it all together. And then, we added our 2026 class, and it's just going to continue to grow and get better. But they're playing really well and working really well together. And so I'm pumped to see what this season has in store for us.
I'm so fascinated that you said you recruit years in advance, because in our other segment, when we were talking about Memphis football, we were talking about how basically it's like a year by year thing because they're like mercenaries. So and the old school approach is you recruit ahead and you look at development. But now it seems like in other sports, it's 1 year, one season at a time. So it's cool to kind of hear you say that you still are looking ahead instead of just focusing on the year, and you're still looking like, okay, we got these players coming in down the line. That's very interesting to me.
Yeah, no, we recruit pretty far out, and our 2027 class, we have some ballers in that class too, and a lot of them are actually going to be coming to school early. They graduate high school early, and so they'll be coming in the spring of 2027. So if people come out to our games in the spring, because we do have a spring season, it doesn't count for anything, but we play a couple spring tournaments, and so you'll get a first look at our 2027 class at that time as well. So we recruit pretty early.
One thing that caught my attention was the launch of the Aces Club. How much can community support really change what's possible for a program like Memphis Volleyball? Because I know you alluded to coming out and supporting you all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that the Aces Club was an amazing idea. My sports supervisor, Keela, she kind of trailhead, was the point of contact for that. But it was a really great idea, for one, because it gets everybody in the gym, right? Like if you're interested in giving and being a part of it, like, we're doing season tickets, we're doing a lot of different things there, but it gets you in the gym. And then you start seeing these athletes play, and then you start learning their names. And then from there, we kind of start building a community that volleyball can thrive in. And so the Aces Club is awesome. We have some big plans for this team going forward. From a facility standpoint, we're trying to do some locker room renovations. We're trying to, possibly do a international trip. And so, all those things cost a little bit. And so being able to implement this program is a great way for the community to help our team out in some of those smaller things and some of our bigger projects as well. But also just being a part of it. We have a really cool tier where if you give X amount, you get to come on a trip with us. So
that's cool.
You get to, take a trip and be a part of like our game day and like on the road and how that is. And we travel to some cool places like in conference and out of conference. So that's a pretty cool thing that comes with that Aces Club. But yeah, it's a really neat thing, and I'm excited to launch it.
Me and my news director, we talk all the time about how much money that is put into like the niche sports that people don't know about, like volleyball, like a tennis, like a golf. And so to see that this is something that's kind of now like public, I'm very interested to see how many people really get into it. And I'm just so fascinated to kind of watch you all grow it, because I think that is really cool. And like we said, in this new world with NIL, we got to be public about it, because a lot of teams, my bag is bigger than yours, and that's why they end up being better. So let's say somebody watching right now, and they've never been to a Memphis volleyball match. What's the one thing you tell them they're missing?
Well, first of all, they're missing energy. And like, I do want to go back, because you had said, volleyball is up and coming. Volleyball has been here. You don't fill out Nebraska filled out a football field with 99, the 92,000 people. And actually one of my players played in that game. You don't fill out a football stadium, if the sport is just up and coming and stuff. But there's a lot of there's cool things that are even developing in Memphis around volleyball. Some of the clubs are finally starting to get more notoriety, and more players are playing in those clubs, teams. And so it's really cool to kind of see it grow. But to go back, so can you tell me your question one more time?
If you've never been to a Memphis volleyball match, what's the one thing you tell them they're missing?
Yeah, if you've never been to a Memphis volleyball match, for one, I would tell you you're missing the energy. These young women, they play hard, they play gritty. I always say they're it's filthy. Can you play? Can you play with that grit and that filth to just be willing to do what you got to do to win games? And like I said, we go back to this spring. It was just a huge spring of development for us, and I saw that in these athletes. And so that's what you're missing. You're missing an amazing group of young women who are they're athletic, they jump high, they hit the ball hard, they're digging balls. Volleyball, every single point, every part of the game is a point. It doesn't have really any slope spots, and so once you come and watch volleyball, you're gonna be hooked. I was my dad's first volleyball athlete. My sister played basketball in college. My brothers played football, and so him sitting and watching games is so funny. Especially now that I'm a coach, because our family group chat is like constantly going off from everybody watching the game, because even somebody who may not be familiar with the rules or anything else, they're gonna enjoy coming to volleyball. It just is. It's just a lot of energy and it's fun. So come on out. You got to watch them play.
Yeah, and Coach, you may have already hit on this, so you don't have to repeat yourself if you do. But my last question is, what would be your message to Memphis fans as they get ready for another volleyball season?
I'm sorry, you kind of broke up a little bit on your thing.
What would be your message to Memphis fans as they get ready for another volleyball season?
Yeah, come out, be loud. We play in the El Marone Fieldhouse, which is an
Yeah.
amazing experience. And it kind of sits in a bowl. So you're able to see all the action, get you some season tickets because they're on
Yeah.
sale and they're really affordable. And, all those ticket purchases, they go to a great cause and everything, but it also gets you in this gym and you get to feel the energy that I'm talking about, because once you experience it once, you're going to come back, because they're really awesome to play and watch. And then also after a lot of the games, we do meet and greets. And so if you're a high school coach or a middle school coach and you want to come out and you want to bring your team, bring them. The athletes or anybody gets in. If you're under 18, you get in for free. So it's a great opportunity for you to come and watch some good volleyball and just enjoy it. So come on out. We would love to have you.
The Memphis volleyball team for the people. Coach, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Best of luck to you and the Tigers this season. And for folks, if you'd like to see this team in action, you'll have two chances right here in Memphis. The Tigers host exhibition matches against Harding on August 15th and Tennessee State on August 22nd. Coach, once again, thanks for joining us. We look forward to following your team all season long.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thanks, Coach. Coming up next, it's time for one of our favorite parts of the show. It's the best thing I saw. We'll each share something that caught our attention in the sports and pop culture world. That's next on the 24th floor.
Happy for him. It's a great decision for him to go to a team that got a good chance to win. Philly, a great fan base, great market, so it's great for the league, man. There's so many eyes that tuned in to his decision. It's only going to help us as a league.
You feel like they're contenders?
For sure. You don't think so?
No, I'm just asking you.
Last time they put 3 20-point scores on the team, they said it was unfair, which is the team I was on. Yeah. They got 4 25-point scores on this team. So hell yeah, I think they're going to be a contender, man. They're going to be a great team to watch.
Our guy Ezekiel Telemaco joining us as always for Best Thing I Saw. And we had to come out to a sock because that was your thing. So
absolutely.
Give the people what they want, my friend.
I think that Kevin Durant is living in the past time. He keeps thinking about 2016. It was 10 years ago when it comes to joining Golden State in that 2017 offseason. And he compares 41-year-old LeBron, like you said, he's not going to make an impact. He's going to be a distraction to the 76ers. That's your opinion. That's not mine.
That's not a distraction right there.
I mean, in terms of the ticket sales and in terms of the merch, that's definitely not a distraction when it comes to the owner's pockets. But Kevin Durant is just, trying to relate this to him as a 27, we got to get that checked out or something. As a 27-year-old in his prime in comparison to a 41-year-old LeBron James. So my question for you is, I think I asked this before, are the 76ers a contender? And how does KD look when it comes to comparing those two separate situations?
I still don't think that they're a contender, just because I'm not I'm not on the LeBron train. I never have been. I never will be. I think he's a talented man, obviously, and has sustained an amazing career. I just don't think he's what gets them over the edge. I think if they're going to win, they were going to win with or without him. They were going to win anyway, because they have other pieces that are more impactful right now.
Absolutely. But Ruben, just to ask you one more time, in terms of Kevin Durant sticking on to this, how does this make him look?
I mean, to me, KD's just being KD. He's always got, if he's not saying it on Twitter or X, he's saying it out loud. That's just how KD is, though. He's been like that his whole time.
Zeke is like KD always makes it about him. Like I said, regular season demons, they ain't winning it all. Unless Embiid is healthy, but that's an asterisk. We'll see.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We don't have that much time, so we'll move on to Ruben's next.
All right, what's the best thing I saw? Well, the best thing I heard is this scratchy mic. The best thing I've seen so far has been Olivia Miles and her run for the MVP. She'll definitely be Rookie of the Year this year, but could she be the MVP? She averages 20 points a game, shoots 38% from the three-point line, shoots 50% from the field, and averages 6 assists a game as a rookie. MVP?
We have not seen a rookie who is a contender for an MVP since Maya Moore, who I think is my GOAT. That's my GOAT. Maybe I'm biased because I saw her play in person in Georgia, but they both played for the Lynx. So look at that.
Absolutely.
The Lynx got them another one.
But in terms of the hype, I mean, Caitlin Clark had a bunch of hype coming into the league. I mean, she has a shoe deal now at Nike.
Be careful, Zeke. They're going to come for you like this.
Do you think that at this moment right now she's better than Caitlin Clark?
I think
I'm
she
not
is
answering that question.
Well, no, so I think she is taking what Caitlin Clark created, the buzz that was created about how much more dynamic women's basketball players can be than what people traditionally thought they were, and Olivia Miles is taking it another step. So I watched Olivia Miles when she was in high school. We played against her, right? And, she can play. She can straight up play. Not just score, she can dish. Caitlin Clark's a lot like that. But Olivia Miles is a lot more mild-mannered, a lot more, a little bit quieter about her business. So I just think it's good for the league to have more than one person that you can cheer for, right? If you more than one dynamic player that you can go watch, it makes the whole league better.
Juju's on the way.
Yeah,
Juju's finna be better than all of them. Juju gonna be better than all of them. All right, let's go on to my next, my best thing. Of course, 3 weeks in a row, fellas, I gotta go with a movie.
Have you watched a sporting event in the last 3 weeks?
I do, but sometimes movies are just better. That's why they say box office and Spider-Man Brand New Day, Zeke. A certified classic, my guy.
Classic, wow.
I will say, I'm not gonna be on this recency bias and say it's the best Spider-Man movie ever, but I'll give it top 3. It's straight out of a comic book.
People say
Read
that
a
it is
comic
the
book,
closest
watch
Spider-Man
the movie,
to the comics. Again, I'm not the biggest movie guy, but people say that in terms of all the Spider-Mans that have been created, in terms of a movie sense, that is the most relatable to the actual comic. But
this movie.
Absolutely.
I would say the Spider-Man series has been the best overall series, regardless really of who's been the Spider-Man, because they've been able to. You think Batman series would be no, I don't think so. The Dark Knight series hasn't been better.
The Amazing Spider-Man was just like a.
Well, yeah, I'm saying overall. Overall,
Toby Andrews.
I'm talking,
superheroes he's talking about in general in terms of any series.
Like if you put all the Spider-Man movies versus all the Batman movies.
Yeah, as opposed to maybe
movies.
the Avengers. The Avengers is a good series, right? But the Supermans, the Batmans, all those Spider-Mans at least have been a series that almost every time it's
I'll give you that.
Absolutely.
Just really more because Into the Spider-Verse, like the Miles Morales thing.
I was going to say rest in peace to Heath Ledger because I think that he was really carrying that Batman franchise. Even though it was Joker, right?
Yeah.
He was really the star, and then they had to kind of change the Joker series entirely to make it more of a psychological.
The fact that Joker did a spin-off movie, which the first one was good, the second one we don't talk about.
I didn't think any of them hit right. It just didn't hit right. At least the Spider-Mans do. At least when you go watch a Spider-Man movie, you're expecting a level because they've been held to a pretty high standard.
I'm sure the kids are happy to see Spider-Man too. You can take them all to the movies.
If it ain't football or Fortnite.
Football or Fortnite.
That's really all my kids are about right now.
Not in it. All right.
F and we got to get some R&R because that will do it for today's episode of the 24th Floor. Shout out to everyone who made today's show possible. I'm talking about Leanna Davis, Connor Alakaya, Logan Orman, as always, our guy, Ezekiel Telemaco.
That's it for today. Have a great day. We will see you on the other side. Peace out.